Hello and welcome to Race to 2020. I'm James Morrow and I'm here with Jack Houghton, here to break down all the fun stuff that's happening in the wild and woolly world of American politics. Jack, big news this week with the killing of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, or as the Daily Telegraph called it, al-Explodey, in northern Syria this week. The left, of course, had kittens, they had conniptions. How dare Donald Trump kill a terrorist? How dare Donald
Everyone's
Trump
having a
talk
meltdown.
about, him in a mean way and be mean to the terrorist? He's only gonna, inflame tensions more. It's just been absolutely amazing. I think we've got a grab of Donald Trump talking about the killing. Let's hear what he had to say.
Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead. He died after running into a dead-end tunnel, whimpering and crying and screaming all the way. He died like a dog. He died like a coward.
Doesn't get any more clear than that, Jack.
Well, he is a coward because on his way out, he ran to the end of this cave as these dogs were chasing him. Hero dogs, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But he dragged 3 of his own children with him.
Yeah.
And he blew them up.
And he blew himself and 3 of those kids up.
What a disgusting, evil...
disgraceful human being, this hedge. Now, there's been so much commentary around this because, of course, the Democratic left, the progressive left, they all love to pretend like they care about national security. They all love to claim they care about the military. Like, oh, it's just outrageous, what Donald Trump has done with, Russia or Ukraine or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But then Donald Trump has a big win here. It's an unalloyed win, and all they can do is decide to say, oh, this is just terrible. How dare Donald Trump, they won't even give him a good day. The best example of this was how the Washington Post, on their headline on their homepage at one point, had the headline memorializing Baghdadi as simply an austere religious leader.
So to me, that's so jarring because if you look at the juxtaposition between the way that Obama handled his big announcement, they're completely at odds with each other. And then to make some kind of argument that you can't be inflammatory when talking about the death of an ISIS leader, and that's going to drive people to the arms of ISIS. Is this the argument?
Well,
I'm really failing.
Look, I just don't know how many people are radicalized by that.
This is the harsh reality of what happened. They went in there to kill or capture this guy. He ended up blowing himself up. He was a coward. He was whimpering. This is a reality. This isn't a game.
And this isn't a game. This guy is a bad guy. He was a leader of ISIL. He was personally in charge of all sorts of torture of captives, all sorts of horrible, horrible stuff. The mass slaughter of Muslim religious minorities, Christians, Yazidis, anybody.
10,000 deaths in Mosul alone with the invasion, 100,000, hundreds of thousands more in the broader Syria conflict and everything, which is a direct result of the caliphate.
He was a mass murderer, a mass rapist, and see in hell al-Baghdadi.
Trump is a bad guy because he talks too inflammatorily about his death.
Well, there's a lot of things going on
lost
there.
Our minds.
There's a lot of things going on there. There's number one, they just hate Trump, so they can't let him have a good day. Number one. So number 2, all of that claiming about, we love America, we love our troops and everything like that, that's all nonsense because the Democratic progressive left is very ambivalent, shall we say, about all of that. But number 3, sorry, there's a 3rd point here. They cannot cope with the idea that somebody is actually evil and, had to be brought down because they were simply an evil person. To them, it's all, he must have had a bad childhood, or, he was radicalized, or, this, or, that. No, he was just simply a bad human being who got what was coming to him. I think
it's actually even worse than that, because do you remember when they got Osama bin Laden and Obama went up there and he's like, I did this, and even though it came out, he actually cancelled 3 times operations to go and get. He finally made the right call. He went in there and got him. Good on him. He deserves the credit. And he was given the credit. The New York Times, Washington Post, they gave him credit. Obama tracked this guy. It was as if he single-handedly marched in there.
I know. I mean, Obama on a push bike in his mom jeans, riding in there.
For me, I do think they do respect the military complex and the fact that it is essential. sensationally.
When it is useful
when
for
it
them.
Is
when it's useful for them. But so just to go back, I want to go back to the Washington Post.
Sure.
Twitter absolutely exploded, and they had so much fun with this, with the hashtag WAPO death notices. So people were talking about, I mean, like we were talking about how, like, they would have memorialized Ivan Milat as a ride-sharing pioneer. We talked about on Twitter, Adolf Hitler, who was, they would have memorialized him as a passionate opponent of Zionism. It's like, and they
I
just
saw a
got
great one about
completely...
Voldemort. Voldemort was just a boy dealing with a face deformity.
Yeah.
Stride through it. I mean, it just shows. Look, and this is like, it's one of those what do they call, like a Rorschach test? I think when you're looking at this, if you see media bias there, it's really a reflection of your own personal views. If you look at that headline and you don't see a problem with them referring to a leader of ISIS as a religious scholar, then
austere.
Yeah.
So like what
you have a problem with media bias.
What is he? St. Thomas More in his study there? I mean, like honestly, what are we talking about here? But we can't let this go without talking about the fantastic hero of this whole thing, the dog. The dog. Now, the dog's name is classified.
No. I'm sorry. I've got a scoop on you.
You've got a scoop?
Dog's name is Conan.
You're scooping the
Named
dog.
after Conan O'Brien.
Really?
Yes.
Not Conan the Barbarian?
No, well, I heard it was Conan O'Brien. It probably might make more sense, Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah. So we've got
here's
the
Conan.
dog,
Conan actually chased al-Baghdadi down, got close enough so that his whimpering coward decided to blow himself and his children up. It did result in there being no personnel lost on the American side. So
the hero dog was injured, but is apparently back on duty. And Trump has invited Conan or whatever. Well, now, hang on. This is.
Oh, look, I may be irreliably informed. Look, I'm sure the comments will correct me.
If you look closely at the picture, it would appear that Conan is a she-dog, and I'm not sure that Conan is a she name. I mean, I know it's.
Do you think I've just been spreading some fake news?
I don't know. I just think it's maybe look. Hey, it's 2019, and
I'm sure the comments will correct me.
And I'm sure and also Conan identifies as a dachshund. So, anyway. So look, let's go back.
Don't you know gender is a construct?
Of course, yeah.
What are you talking about? This abject notion of male and female.
Well, look, that's quite a tale you're telling here.
You are a sexist.
But I think we need to pause on that note. But the other. Let's come back to Washington, though. I want to come back to Washington because I can do this all day long. I just worry that this dog, because of its role in capturing al-Baghdadi, might have to go to witness protection. So anyway, Anyway, Jax looks says it all. Let's go back to Washington and the doings of the Democrats. And I want to talk about impeachment in a minute. But first, let's go over the curious case of Congresswoman Katie Hill. Jack, tell us what's happened here.
Well, here's a woman who has had an affair with a female staffer, and it actually turns out that they were having this kind of menage a trois with her husband and the female staffer.
Polyamorous relationship.
Yes.
Polyamory is all the rage now, we're told.
How very woke in
how very,
2019.
It isn't so funny that, like, the whole new woke thing is essentially, car keys in a bowl like we're in a John Updike short story from the 1960s. But anyway,
But the problem was that the husband, and he's done the wrong thing here. He's released revenge porn. So he's released photos. I think it was on Reddit, just from memory.
I don't know.
Uncensored photos. This woman naked, holding up a bong though. So that's not great. And this was pre to it being legal.
But there's a bigger problem here, though, is that ultimately people's personal lives are their personal lives.
Do you mean the way she spun it?
However, this woman worked in her office, and my understanding is that Congress, post-Me Too era, has rules against having any sexual relationships with your staffers. So like, on that level...
They campaigned for this. This is what they wanted.
This is what they wanted, and now they're hoisted on their own petard with it. So it's like, they've got to follow their own rules. But I understand that she is now trying to make herself out as the victim in all this.
So this is quite extraordinary. She's released a fairly lengthy resignation letter, because we should say that she has resigned.
She has quit. Pelosi made her quit. Apparently.
Is
that's
that right?
Yes.
So she hasn't done this on her own volition.
So apparently my understanding is that Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, has said this is all just ridiculous. Get out.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's read how she's spinning it. Having private photos of personal moments weaponized against me has been an appalling invasion of my privacy. It's also illegal. Yes, it's true. And we are currently pursuing all of our available legal options. However, I know that as long as I am in Congress, we'll live fearful of what might come next and how much it will hurt. That's a feeling I know all too well. It's a feeling that I decided to leave when I left my marriage, and one I will not tolerate being forced upon others. So she also goes on to label it, she has suffered unprecedented brand of cruelty.
Oh, come on.
Unprecedented.
No.
So there's two things at play here, if we want to separate it. Something bad that did happen was that the husband leaked the revenge porn photos. I'm not going to make a case to defend that.
I'm not going to make a case for that either.
That's pretty disgusting.
That's disgusting. That's terrible,
personal,
and that should never be done.
But that is separate to the act of sleeping with a staffer who is paid taxpayer funds and is under your care in this Harvey Weinstein-esque manner.
Yeah, and
You're no victim. And, you decided to do that.
I'm sorry, you are supposed to be representing your people in your district. You're not supposed to be involved in some polyamorous deal with your husband
Smoking
and somebody
bongs.
in your staff who the taxpayer is funding, smoking bongs on camera. Like, I'm sorry, they made their California king bed big enough for all three of them to lie in. So she's got to accept some responsibility here. And I think for the Democrats, who have, by the way, done nothing but weaponized sexual stuff against Republicans
I missed
every
a really
step
good line
of the
here.
way.
She actually goes on to say so many women are victims. So she's actually found a way to spin it as if she is a victim of the patriarchal looking down on women and subjugating women. She's found a way in a resignation letter to group herself with actual female victims. That's disgusting.
And of
She's
course
not a
it is.
victim.
But again,
she was the one who held the power in this relationship.
You go back to the American press, and they are writing about this, and they are taking this completely her side on this, ignoring the fact that this was an inappropriate relationship with a staffer, and if this was a Republican who was involved with this, they would slaughter him or her. But because this is part of the whole new Young Turk, Katie Hall is part of the Young Turk Democratic movement. She is far left, very anti-Trump. So, of course, she is always the victim, and she can do no wrong. Because, of course, for them, the rules don't apply.
Yes.
All that counts is that you've got your, Never Trump badge and your hat and all of that stuff, and not that hat, but the other kind of hat.
No, that hat'll trigger.
That hat's triggering. It's a red hat.
Wear that
triggering.
Hat, you can get jailed.
Exactly.
New Utopia.
Anyway, so let's talk. There is actually more. Stop playing with Donald's head.
It's fun.
It's fun. All right.
He's a great guy.
Anyway, he is. So let's go though. The big story, of course, has to be the continuing impeachment saga. Now, I get the sense here, Jack, with all of this, that the Democrats are pretty much making this up as they go along. What do you think?
Well, I think there's a couple of different ways you can look at what happened with Ukraine specifically.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the actual impeachment process.
Oh, I think the impeachment process, they started thinking they had more than they had, and then when Donald Trump released the transcript, which they weren't actually privy to because they were just going off secondhand sources, I think they're now just trying to scramble to make the best of a bad situation.
But not only that, like, there's this whole bizarre thing that's happening now with this these closed-door hearings that the Democrats are running. They aren't allowing any Republicans in. They're not releasing publicly what the transcripts are. It feels to me like a star chamber where they're trying to massage this whole process to try and hope to somewhere find something. And now they've got this general who they think is going to testify against Trump, and that's going to be the smoking gun. But
I mean, look, my reading of this is they keep saying they've got a smoking gun about all these issues. They kept saying this about the Mueller report, and then it turned out they didn't, and the Mueller report overwhelmingly, I think, was favourable to Donald Trump.
Of course it was. It said there was no collusion.
I mean, look, there was that little secondary thing about, his tweets and were they influencing stuff, but that is so minor compared to the original allegation that he was colluding with a foreign power, which we now know definitively cannot be proven.
I mean, like, for number one,
it's exonerated.
Like the whole weird thing, there's so much bizarre stuff here. I mean, number one, the Democrats who, for my entire life, want to do nothing but collude with Russia, particularly during the Cold War. And now they're all ready to go toe-to-toe in global thermonuclear combat with the Ruskies.
On camera talking to Vladimir and being like, hey, when I'm in power, mate,
he was talking to Medvedev. Obama said to Medvedev, after my election, I'll have more flexibility. In 1979, when Ted Kennedy, yes, that Ted Kennedy of the Ted Kennedy driving school, was talking about running for president, he actually tried to make a deal with the Russians. It's documented, to make a deal with the Russians to have them, come in and help him with the nomination process. And he got laughed at because Ted Kennedy was even too much of a drunk for the Ruskies. But the
other thing is, why shouldn't they want to get along well with Russia? Why shouldn't they doing? But look, the main thing that
that's a foreign policy question. But so go ahead. Sorry.
Look, with the impeachment, I think it can be seen through the lens of two different ways, right? So with Ukraine and the conversation that took place. And it's kind of like another Rorschach test.
Yeah.
Right? So the way you look at this is kind of how you perceive Donald Trump's personality to be.
Yeah.
If you think he is some masterful tactician who has his finger on the button, who is planning ahead, then it is plausible to think that foreign aid was being used as a weapon to wield political. So that's one narrative, right? And it's not implausible, and this is why they're gaining enough traction to influence voters. I think you've seen the polls and the impeachment rise. The other is
although a USA Today poll,
Donald Trump is a conspiracy theorist lover, and he's in there and he's just wheeling and dealing, and he's a bit loose, and he's saying, "Hey, you got Joe."
So the thing with Trump is, the thing is that like everybody has to understand about Donald Trump is that he's an operations guy. So his whole thing was, he spent decades, literally decades, in New York, building hotels and casinos and dealing with, and we're talking about the old days, before all this stuff was clear up. So that means he was dealing with construction unions, crooked politicians, the mob, all of the, and he got through that and he survived. So these are, so he looks at the people in Washington and says, I can deal with you people. But what that also means, though, is that Trump is a hands-on operations guy, whereas presidents generally have several layers of, stuff between them and any sort of...
He's also covered himself because a diplomat has testified saying there's no quid pro quo.
So, but either way, what I'm saying, though, is that what makes Trump really successful is also a flaw, because he does, so because he's the guy who will pick up the phone himself and make the call about something, like he's, trying to sort out some problem on a job site.
Yes,
there's not the sort of the layers of, in a political office, whether it's a ministerial office or a prime ministerial office here or in the Oval Office in the U.S., there's not the layers of staffers between, him saying, we got to look into this Ukraine thing, and then having somebody say, oh well, he just said that there, and give him the flick if it becomes a problem. So he brings that in. But the thing is, though, is that there's such a lack of, I think, understanding of the world of people who are criticizing Trump. Let's just talk about, go back to Syria for a second. There was this huge amount of hue and cry about the pulling out of troops from that area in Syria, and the betrayal of the Kurds and so on and so forth. But the people who are criticizing them don't understand the nature of PKK, which were the Kurds that we were supporting previously. They don't understand the nature of Turkish-Syrian relations. They don't understand Russians' role.
The Kurds have blown people up. The Kurds have committed pretty bad acts of terror as well.
The PKK has been a thorn in Turkey's side for decades. Of course, the Kurds have always been poorly dealt with since 1920 in the Treaty of Sèvres, when they were supposed to have been given an independent state. But putting that history aside, what nobody sees is that what he's now created, what Trump has created by this move, is simply to engineer a situation where, by getting out of there, Assad and the Russians and the Syrians are all very tight. The Russians have been in Syria since 1971, since they opened a naval base, and have been involved in Syrian politics very closely since the 1960s. So the idea that you're going to evict Russia from Syria is insane. And the Russians did an awful lot in the fight against ISIS as well. Eventually, at some point, then, Turkey and Syria are going to be in a conflict. Why does the U.S. need to be involved with that? They actually, we don't want to be anywhere near that when it happens, and it actually creates a much bigger problem, because that means that as ISIS regains strength again, even after the killing of Baghdadi, it means that they've got a whole terrorist problem that the Russians then are left to deal with, that's going to have big blowback in Russia itself. He's actually created a problem for Putin, not given him.
I see it a little bit differently.
Bonus, but
I do see it a little bit differently. I think.
How do you see it, Jack?
Well,
give it to us, Jack.
You do.
What do you think?
You do need a
foothold. We need
foothold.
to know.
It's his strategy is, and he ran on this. To be fair, he ran on this, and he was like, "I'm going to get you out of all these places."
Yep.
But do we want a country like Russia to have a foothold in all these little places? Because what Russia did, which was genius, is they managed to get a foothold in this particular region with using as few assets as possible. I think it was like 11 fighter jets, and they've got some other assets there as well, but very few. And then now they're in there. And
but Jack, the Russians have been in Syria since the 1960s. They have a naval base.
You don't think they're
since 1971? So
you don't think they have a stronger foothold now that America has pulled out and that they were being used in Syria, etc.?
I think that it doesn't. I think the idea that you could evict Russia from Syria is nuts. It's just simply not going to happen. And
it's a scale.
And
so they could have one.
If Russia
it's
is
different
there,
to 10.
If Russia is there fighting ISIS, then in doing that job, then that's fine. It doesn't hurt America's strategic interests.
Yeah.
Like it actually means that the problem is that there's this attitude that America has to be absolutely everywhere at once. And that's simply not possible. That's not plausible. It's simply you can't do that. American troops are still in northern Iraq. There's still that presence there. Mediterranean fleet. Leave Syria to the Russians. I just don't care. Honestly, like the Russians have been in Syria since forever.
What do you think about the notion that the Kurds did help a lot, and then by leaving them, you're leaving them to a pretty horrific fate by pulling troops out?
I think it's.
Why would anybody work with Allied forces again? Why would anybody work with the American, Aussie, British Allied forces if they're like, well, they're just going to get up and leave us?
It's a shame.
There's a moral question. If you take away the strategy from it.
But every single president since the first George H.W. Bush has screwed the Kurds, and in fact they've been screwed since 1920, and they've been screwed by everybody. It doesn't make it right
for the Kurds a little bit.
But how do you then what do you do for the Kurds? You can't create a Kurdistan that's going to be run by the PKK, you also cannot be arming people who are fighting against a NATO member, Turkey, and Turkey is still a NATO member, whatever the depredations of the horrible idiot Erdogan are. So it's very complicated.
It's complicated.
But
it is a bit silly, but the idea to sit of just on the sideline and to judge Trump for it.
Let's go back to the impeachment thing, though. I just want to go back to the impeachment. So now they're going to hold a vote in the House about bringing the process forward. This is why I think that they are making this up as they go along. Nancy Pelosi has a huge problem. That problem is that she is trying to keep together this coalition on the left that, on the one hand, wants total revolution and the overthrow of Trump, and then on the other hand, they've got Trump Democrats who are in Trump districts who want to win re-election in 2020. This cannot stand. So anyway, Nancy Pelosi, we got a tweet up here, and Pelosi said, the House has been following the facts and the evidence, has only made the president's own words on his call more appalling. This resolution will set up the structure for the next phase where the American people can hear those facts for themselves in open hearings. And it goes on about how this resolution is...
Truth exposed.
Hashtag truth exposed. Nancy Pelosi goes all very current affair. This resolution establishes a procedure for hearings that are open to the American people, authorizes disclosure, blah, 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 blah. Outlines procedures to transfer evidence. Anyway, so the interesting thing here is that she's making a really big bet here because only 36% of people, according to the USA Today this morning, want this vote to go forward. There's a real sense...
Is it down to 36%?
Well, it's USA
Today. What happened to all these polls that were hovering around 50%?
Well,
I heard that maybe they were accidentally pooling too many Democrats.
Yeah, I think that may be happening. But the thing is that that reflects the sort of the adamantine third of America who just loathes Trump and can't stand him. The Democrat...
Hashtag truth exposed.
Hashtag truth exposed.
Hashtag truth exposed.
Hashtag. So anyway, so we're the hashtag boys here. The thing is, though, is that with this whole impeachment thing, the subtext to it is that the Democrats are just like about a week and a year away from the next general election.
Sure.
And they have got essentially nobody as an effective candidate. And we saw this week that essentially Kamala Harris, who was talked about as one of the big heavy hitters. Now her polling has gone off a cliff. I think we've got some of those numbers here we can put up on the screen. So we see so Biden. So this is to be the nominee. Biden 27%, Sanders 25%, Warren 21%. Buttigieg 6%. Then Harris is down.
Pete Buttigieg is now ahead of Kamala Harris. That's a pretty good effort for him.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very good effort for him. He's actually got a lot of support in progressive circles, especially sort of coastal liberals and stuff. He's got a couple of problems because when he was mayor of what was the town in Notre Dame? The town where Notre Dame is, South Bend, Indiana. Yeah. There was some problems with policing and African Americans, so he's got some trouble with that vote potentially. And a lot of his policies are so far left, I just don't think that they'll fly.
Unlike your friend Elizabeth Warren, obviously you're backing.
Not backing, but I do think that she's probably their best bet. Because the thing is that Biden at 27%, that support again I say is really soft. Here's the thing. Biden's campaign in the last quarterly filings had $8.9 million US dollars. That is nothing. The money is not flowing for him. I think Warren is...
It's not all about the money, though, is it?
Narrator, it was about the money. It is about the money. I mean, like...
All right, educate me. Why does it matter so much if there's such a vast difference in resources?
Okay, well, because, it's a money game. Ultimately, you need not just ad buys, organization, get out the vote efforts. Right. Remember, America, it's not compulsory voting like Australia, so you've got to get out the vote. You've got to have huge data crunching operations. You've got to have huge amounts of staff. You've got these Iowa caucuses coming up. You've got New Hampshire. The early states are going to be huge. If you don't have a lot of money to run big organizations in these crucial early states, then you get knocked out in these early states and you can't advance. You need the first hurdles are very high. And it also shows that there's simply the other thing about the money is that it's sort of an early vote of support. And if the early money isn't coming, it means that there's not there's just not a lot of enthusiasm. It's also a register of enthusiasm. Now,
so just can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders is known for grassroots campaigning, and actually, which is very interesting for Australia, for our Australian listeners and viewers, because Get Up, a lot of the people that formulated that strategy actually have ties to Bernie Sanders' campaign. And it's about these micro donations that come through from a lot of people, small amounts rather than big ones from big corporations. They use it as a selling point.
So if
how is he doing financially?
Well, I think he's doing better, but I don't have the numbers just to hand. But I do know that his big thing is getting those small donations, and that you can look at that and the number of donations say under a certain amount versus over, and you can say, well, this guy has got support of a large number of people who are willing to put their money on the line.
And we saw obviously the AOC, Alexandria Cortez.
Oh yeah, who's too young to run for president, by the way. Let's remember that. She's like 31 or something like that.
Thank God. Oh my God, can you imagine?
Oh my God.
So she's endorsed him obviously, and she's like, oh, Bernie Sanders was an inspiration, and she's also saying that part of the strategy that she adopted for her campaign, the micro donation strategy, she borrowed that from Bernie. I find that so interesting. Do you see the face of political donations changing now that the internet and micro donations is a thing? Now we've got these absurd people that AOC, even if say if 5% of people would vote for her at say a national primary data pool, but all of those 5% would be willing to give little micro donations.
Well, I mean, in one level, it's a moot point, because if the Bernies and AOCs of America wind up in control of the country, then no one's going to have any goddamn money to donate anyway. But because they'll all be in some socialist hellhole.
Well, you won't have money. You'll have vouchers.
No, and we'll be rioting for toilet paper. So
didn't you know that money is just a tool of the patriarchy to subjugate the masses?
Man. So absolutely that. But beyond that, though, I think that it will affect things up to a point. But the big money is still the big money.
The big money is still the big money.
Yeah, the big money is still the big money.
So,
but sorry, I just want to say on the Warren thing, on the AOC endorsement of Sanders. So, before that came out, there was a lot of, will Warren get the AOC?
Why does it matter?
Exactly. She's this goofball, but so I think exactly.
Something?
Eat the babies.
Can I just say she didn't interrupt that woman who was trolling her, who was like, we should eat babies. AOC was like, thank you for your contribution. Like, She didn't go like, okay, that's insane. You're an insane person. Just
security,
saying,
you know.
I'm not saying she's eating a baby. I'm just saying it looks suspicious.
No. But that's it. I think that the AOC endorsement going to Sanders actually helps Warren, because when it comes down to sort of...
You love Warren.
I don't love...
love Elizabeth Warren.
I don't love Elizabeth Warren, but I do...
I love her 1,024th as much as you
that's how much love I have for her. I have 1,024th of my heart is in love with Elizabeth Warren.
I just love that minority aspect
and the
of
doctors are going to cut that out later today.
So how will it help? I'm being a
because look, I think that she's the most likable candidate, you know.
Yeah,
but
because you like her.
Oh, shut up, Jack. The point is, you know, look, at least I don't have a crush on Bernie, you know, which is a bit weird. Okay, all right. So
I said Joe Biden is clearly. I think that he is the most moderate.
Look, but
where am I?
Where am I? You know, but the thing with the Biden thing is that he's senescent. You know, he's Grandpa Simpson.
Yeah, I'm going to pretend I know what that word means.
Yeah, well, he's Grandpa Simpson. I mean, just Google the corn pop story and you'll see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But then you go back to Warren. She at least presents as safe and not crazy. Bernie Sanders,
senescent.
You know, crazy old socialist, who's going to, take away your private health care. You know, now Elizabeth Warren will probably take away your private health care too, but she'll say it in a nicer way. But the AOC thing, it means that Middle America will be less inclined to Sanders, I think, because Sanders is so, because it'll just tip him further to the left. This is all great in the nomination process, but it's not. I also just don't think that Sanders has like the outsidery thing that he did in the last election. Like he was, because he was running against Hillary Clinton. There's still time, people. I'm just going to put that out there.
I'd love her to hop in the ring.
I know.
And she wants to, doesn't she?
I know. You can tell.
You can just see.
She's absolutely sitting there with a big schooner of Sutter Home Chardonnay, and she's sitting there. And she's typing
after
away.
She's millions from the bankers. She's so.
That was my election, Jack.
Yep, I'm going to drain the swamp.
Yeah, well, she's going to drain a bottle of Chardonnay. Is what she's going to do. But so you go down the line there.
Does she have a drinking problem?
Oh, that's always been the rap on her that she's a massive booze hound. I mean, I'm probably like saying this completely unfairly, but that has always been the word on her that she certainly likes a tipple. So Hillary Clinton, if you're ever in Australia, I would love to have a drink with you and solve all the problems of the world.
Yeah, I was going to say,
be a lot of
glass
fun.
Houses and stones.
Well, mate,
glass houses and stones,
mate. I've seen you come in here a little rough of a podcast morning. Never you.
No, I don't drink, mate.
No, that's no. You just freeze it and eat it like a popsicle. So that's where I think we are. The thing is, though, is that because Sanders can't be an outsider, because he doesn't have Hillary to run against him, and let's be really fair, Sanders, for all his loony politics, was completely and entirely screwed over by the Clinton machine in the last election, corruptly in the
leaking
Iowa
questions.
No, but also just go and look at how they handled the Iowa caucuses. It's completely corrupt. But at the same time, though, ridiculously, because he actually, has the keys to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Donald Trump now gets to run as an outsider again because the Washington establishment is trying to impeach him. So this is like his dream scenario. Yeah. He gets to be the outsider again.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, look, we're probably going to have to wrap it up soon, but before we do, can I just have your prediction on who are we going to see versing Donald Trump, and can they beat Donald Trump at this juncture?
Okay, number one, please don't say versing. My kids say versing, and it drives me crazy. And I always yell at them, and I say, oh, and we versed so-and-so in soccer. No, you didn't verse, you played against. So, who do I think is...
I think verse is a
Are you writing poetry? No.
Yes.
No.
Everything I say is poetic.
Okay, well, there once was a...
Give me what's the grammar origins of that? What's the English theory that versus and versing?
Versus is Latin.
Okay.
So anyway, we'll
do it off air.
Do it off air.
Okay.
We'll take this one off.
Let's wrap this up. I got stuff to do.
You got stuff to do.
Educate me later.
Yeah, busy man. You go read a dictionary. That's all I'm saying. So look, I reckon if Hillary doesn't hop in, I'm still saying that it's going to be Warren. I think that she is the most. Passable candidate. I mean, her policies are quite far left.
No surprises. You've picked Elizabeth Warren. Okay.
But Joe Biden, if they run Joe Biden, I think that he will struggle to do it on the campaign trail. Bernie Sanders, A, he's a socialist. B, he's had a heart attack on the trail. Now, the interesting thing, though, I think we should talk a little bit about VPs. I suspect that Pete Buttigieg is looking good for somebody's possible running mate there, seeing how he's going.
Pete Buttigieg.
Pete Buttigieg.
Really?
Yeah, I think it would get if they would get that sort of the liberal coastal thing really locked in.
And he's no threat. He's no threat. He's good. Yeah, he's a good VP, isn't he?
Think about it.
He is.
You see what I'm saying?
He is, and he's doing well enough that he's almost can be respected. So what number would he actually be ranked then if you were to?
You mean on that chart we just saw? I think it was 5. He's at 6%. I mean,
it's a fairly respectful position.
Look, I mean, you've got those three. Then you've got then you've got everybody else. You've got Harris tanking, and then you've got all those other people who are just going to start to drop out.
Yeah.
But they're all sort of angling for other parts of the game. Remember Beto O'Rourke? I mean, whatever happened to him. Anyway, that's, I think, all we got time for today. So let's wrap it on that.
And don't forget to subscribe, throw us a like, and remember this is also available on any podcast app that you may have. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you next Wednesday.
I'm James Morrow, and
I'm Jack Houghton.
See you next week.